The heat radiating off the asphalt is thick enough to distort the horizon. You are trapped in a slow-crawling river of idling metal at the San Isidro port of entry. Exhaust fumes bleed through the floorboards of your battered Honda Civic, mixing with the sharp, metallic tang of your own nervous sweat. The air conditioning died 3 miles ago. You do not roll down the windows. You sit perfectly still, staring at the brake lights of the Ford pickup 10 feet ahead. Your hands are gripping the steering wheel so tightly that your knuckles have turned a sickly, translucent white. Between the concrete barriers, a Customs and Border Protection officer is walking a Belgian Malinois down the lane. The dog is panting, its nose brushing against the wheel wells of the vehicles. It is moving with terrifying mechanical efficiency. You stop breathing. You press your spine into the cheap fabric of your seat. Beneath you, welded into the hollow cavities of the car's rocker panels, are 15 kilos of pure crystal methamphetamine. You watched men in a dirt-floor garage wrap the product in layers of thick plastic, seal it in dense PVC tubes, and coat the entire package in a thick paste of axle grease and crushed carbon paper to confuse the X-ray portals and the dogs. But sitting here, watching the Malinois pull at its leash, carbon paper feels like a laughably pathetic defense. The dog reaches your rear bumper. It stops. It sniffs the seam of the trunk. The CBP officer pauses, his hand resting casually on his utility belt. The silence inside your car is deafening, broken only by the frantic, bird-like fluttering of your own heart against your ribs. You imagine the dog sitting. You imagine the officer tapping your glass. You imagine the handcuffs biting into your wrists, and the next 20 years of your life evaporating into the gray concrete of a federal penitentiary. The dog sneezes, loses interest, and pulls the officer toward the next car. When you finally pull up to the booth, the agent in the glass box barely looks at you. He asks for your destination. You feed him the lie you practiced in the mirror for 3 hours last night, visiting a cousin in Chula Vista for a birthday party. He glances at your passport, hands it back, and waves you through. You do not exhale until you are 3 miles onto the interstate. Your vision is blurry with adrenaline. You navigate to a transmission shop sitting on a cracked concrete lot in the industrial outskirts of the city. You pull the car into the third bay. A man missing 2 fingers on his left hand rolls a heavy steel door shut behind you. He doesn't ask how the drive was. He doesn't offer you a bottle of water. He slides under your vehicle with an angle grinder. The shower of orange sparks illuminates the dark garage. 20 minutes later, he hands you a thick, unmarked envelope. You drive home in silence. You lock the door of your apartment, sit on the edge of your mattress, and tear the envelope open. $5,000 in crumpled, used hundreds. It is more cash than you have ever held in your hands at one time. It is rent for 6 months. It is groceries without looking at the price tags. It is breathing room. You tell yourself this was a one-time thing. You tell yourself you survived, you got the money, and you are officially done. 3 days later, the phone rings. It is an unknown number. The text is a single address and a time. You look at the cash sitting on your nightstand. You look at the phone. The trap does not close when they lock you in a cell. The trap closes the moment you realize how easy the money is, because regular money will never make sense again. Working 40 hours a week under fluorescent lights for minimum wage feels like an insult. After you just made $5 grand in a single afternoon, you text back. You agree to the run. The desperation fades, quickly replaced by routine. The cartel does not want desperate people. Desperate people panic. They want professionals. You stop driving your own car. You graduate to the Clavo Fleet. The vehicles you are handed look entirely unremarkable. A mid-2000s Toyota Camry, a faded Nissan Altima. But underneath the mundane exteriors, they are feats of illicit engineering. The Clavo, the hidden compartment, is operated by a sequence of electronic triggers wired directly into the car's existing systems. To open the stash behind the dashboard, you have to turn the ignition to the accessory position, activate the rear defroster, roll the passenger window down exactly halfway, and push the hazard light switch. Only then do the hydraulic pistons hiss, sliding the radio console forward to reveal a void packed tightly with vacuum-sealed bricks. You are a mule, but you begin to view yourself as a logistics specialist. You learn the rhythm of the border. You learn that shift changes happen at specific hours, creating tiny windows of administrative distraction. You learn to read the faces of the border agents from 6 cars back. You avoid the young ones with the sharp haircuts. They are eager, they want to bust, they want to prove themselves. You aim for the older agents, the ones with tired eyes who look like they are just counting the minutes until their pension kicks in. You make 20 runs, then 30. The envelopes pile up. You move out of your cramped apartment into a gated community. You buy a watch that costs more than your first car. To your neighbors, you are an independent courier, a vague profession that requires odd hours and long drives. But the psychological toll begins to manifest in quiet, terrifying ways. You cannot sleep without the television on because the silence is too loud. Every time a police cruiser pulls behind you in traffic, your stomach drops into an icy void, and you spend 3 agonizing minutes waiting for the lights to flash. You go to a restaurant with a friend, and when a man in a polo shirt looks at you a second too long, you instinctively map the exits and calculate how fast you can reach your car. Paranoia is the tax you pay on the cartel's money, and the interest compounds daily. Your reliability does not earn you a retirement plan. It earns you a promotion. The organization realizes you possess the rarest commodity in the smuggling world, a calm pulse under federal scrutiny. They don't want you moving 15 kilos in a dashboard anymore. They want you moving real weight. You are handed a forged commercial driver's license and placed behind the wheel of a massive idling white semi-truck. The vibration of the massive diesel engine rattles your teeth. The trailer hitched behind you is a 53-foot refrigerated unit known as a reefer. The manifest strapped to your clipboard is entirely legitimate. You are hauling 40,000 pounds of fresh Mexican watermelon sourced from a commercial farm in Sinaloa, destined for a wholesale produce market in Los Angeles. The paperwork is flawless. The seals on the trailer doors are intact. But beneath the mountains of green rinds, welded beneath a false steel floor that was installed in a heavily guarded warehouse the night before, sits 500 kilograms of pure methamphetamine. The scale of the operation terrifies you. You are sitting on top of millions of dollars in street value. You are no longer risking a few years in a county facility. You are driving a federal life sentence wrapped in 18 wheels. The rules of the road change completely. You are tracked. A GPS unit is hardwired into the cab of your truck, monitored constantly by handlers sitting in a safe house hundreds of miles away. If you deviate from the approved route, they know. If you stop at a gas station for 20 minutes instead of the allotted 15, your burner phone rings, and a cold, flat voice demands to know exactly why the engine is off. You are not a trusted employee. You are a highly monitored asset carrying the cartel's GDP. The military checkpoints deep inside Mexico are the first crucible. You approach a sandbag choke point at kilometer 97. Heavily armed soldiers in digital camouflage surround the truck. They look bored, exhausted, and incredibly dangerous. The commander steps up to your window. He asks for your manifest. You hand it down, along with a folded envelope containing thousands of pesos. It is the toll required to keep the heavy steel doors of the trailer shut. He takes the paperwork, pockets the envelope with practiced sleight of hand, and waves you through. But the American commercial crossing is a different beast entirely. Bribery is not the primary mechanism here. Deception is. You idle in a line of commercial trucks stretching for miles. The air brakes hiss violently as you inch forward. You are approaching the Z portal. It is a massive drive-through X-ray scanning system utilized by CBP to look straight through the steel walls of your trailer. The technology uses backscatter X-rays that highlight organic matter. This is why you are carrying watermelons. The density of the fruit, the high water content, creates a chaotic, cluttered image on the inspector's monitor. The cartel chemists and engineers have calculated exactly how much biological mass is required to scatter the X-ray beams and mask the dense, crystalline structure of the methamphetamine hidden in the floor. You pull the massive rig under the archway of the scanner. You are instructed to exit the cab and stand behind a concrete wall while the machine sweeps over the truck. You stand in the blazing sun, your hands shoved deep into your pockets to hide the violent tremor in your fingers. You watch the green light on the portal flash. The wait is an eternity. You play out the scenarios in your head. If the alarm sounds, if the tactical team swarms the cab, you know exactly what happens. You do not fight. You lay face down on the concrete. You let them put the heavy steel cuffs on your wrists. You never open your mouth. You understand that the cartel expects you to take the fall. They will not send lawyers. They will not bail you out. If you mention a single name to the DEA, they will not just kill you in prison. They will send men to your mother's house. A buzzer sounds. The CBP officer steps out of the booth. He points a gloved finger toward the exit lane. Green light. You are cleared. You climb back into the cab, your legs feeling like hollow rubber. You pull the air horn, shift the heavy gears, and merge onto the American highway. You deliver the trailer to a sprawling, unmarked logistics center in the industrial sprawl of Southern California. A crew of men swarms the truck the moment you back into the loading dock. They don't look at you. They immediately begin unbolting the false floor. The man running the dock hands you a thick, vacuum-sealed stack of cash. You don't even count it. You just want to get away from the truck. Months bleed into years. The highway hypnotizes you. The white lines ticking past the windshield become the only reality you understand. You memorize the locations of every way station from Arizona to Oregon. You know which stretches of Interstate 10 are heavily patrolled by state troopers. You learn how to run 2 different logbooks, one for the Department of Transportation inspectors, showing the legally mandated sleep hours, and the real one, tracking the grueling, amphetamine-fueled 30-hour drives required to meet the cartel's impossible delivery schedules. Your nervous system is permanently frayed. You are drinking coffee until your stomach burns, popping pills to keep your eyes open, and sleeping in cheap motels with a deadbolt thrown and a chair jammed under the doorknob. You are rich, but your money is utterly useless. You can't put it in a bank without triggering IRS flags. It sits in duffel bags in your closet, a physical monument to your own trapped existence. You realize you cannot drive forever. The law of averages dictates that eventually, an inspector is going to tap the floor of a trailer and hear a hollow echo. Eventually, a dog is going to slip past the scent masking grease. You leverage your flawless track record. You tell the regional boss you are stepping out of the cab. You transition to the logistics side. You become a fleet dispatcher. You no longer touch the steering wheel, and you never touch the product. You operate entirely through a laptop and encrypted messaging apps in a clean, modern office building. You manage a fleet of 12 semi-trucks, moving thousands of kilos of product under the guise of an international agricultural transport company. Your problems are no longer about dogs and x-rays. Your problems are systemic. You spend your days staring at digital maps, tracking the GPS beacons of your drivers. You coordinate with corrupt customs brokers who ensure your trucks are placed in the lanes of compromised border agents. You calculate the exact loss margins the cartel is willing to accept. You understand the brutal mathematics of the industry. The organization expects to lose 10% of its loads to law enforcement. It is the cost of doing business. But when a load is lost, you are the one responsible for managing the fallout. The screen on your laptop flashes. One of your trucks, carrying $3 million worth of cocaine hidden inside hollowed-out wooden pallets, has been stationary at a checkpoint in Texas for exactly 45 minutes. You try the driver's burner phone. It goes straight to voicemail. The cold realization sets in. The truck is popped. You do not panic. You execute the protocol. You immediately remotely wipe the GPS data from the truck's cab. You access the dummy corporation's bank accounts and transfer the operational funds into offshore shell companies before the federal asset forfeiture teams can freeze them. You burn the burner phone you used to contact the driver and snap the SIM card in half. Then comes the hardest part of the job. The cartel does not forgive lost products simply because of bad luck. They demand absolute assurance that the driver will not strike a plea deal with the federal prosecutors. You do not send enforcers to threaten the driver. You handle it yourself, cleanly and quietly. You drive to a modest suburban home where the driver's family lives. You knock on the door. The driver's mother answers. You smile. You speak politely. You sit at her kitchen table and accept a cup of tea. You explain that her son has run into a legal issue at work. You hand her an envelope containing $20,000 in cash. You tell her this is to help with rent and groceries while her son is away. You look her directly in the eyes. You tell her the organization will take care of her family indefinitely, provided her son remains entirely silent during his trial. You do not need to make an overt threat. She sees the coldness in your posture. She understands the unspoken transaction. If he talks, you never see him again. You leave the house feeling hollowed out, a shell of a human being operating purely on institutional momentum. You have become the very monster that terrified you when you were just a kid sweating in a Honda Civic at the border. You are the man in the polo shirt handing out the envelopes. You insulate yourself in layers of bureaucracy. You live in a penthouse apartment. You drive a luxury SUV that has never been used to transport a single gram of narcotics. To the outside world, you are a highly successful supply chain logistics executive. But the insulation is an illusion. The higher you climb, the more precarious the ledge becomes. The DEA does not work on the timeline of the streets. They work in years. They build cases slowly, methodically, tracing the invisible threads of communication and finance. It starts with subtle disruptions. A bank account in Panama gets frozen. A corrupted border agent you rely on suddenly takes early retirement and disappears. 3 of your trucks are pulled over for random DOT inspections in a single week. Though nothing is found, you know the signs. They are probing the perimeter. You begin to notice the vehicles parked down the street from your office. Unmarked sedans with tinted windows. The men sitting inside never seem to leave. You switch your routes. You change your phones twice a week. You stop going to the restaurants you love. The paranoia you felt as a driver was acute, tied to specific moments at checkpoints. The paranoia you feel now is chronic, a low-level static that hums in your brain from the moment you wake up to the moment you force yourself to sleep. One evening, you receive a message on your heavily encrypted terminal. It is from the regional boss in Mexico. It is not an order. It is a notification. The warehouse in El Paso was raided. They have the ledgers. You are burned. Disappear. The message self-destructs 5 seconds after you read it. The screen goes black. You sit in the silence of your pristine high-rise office. You look out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the sprawling city lights below. You have millions of dollars secured in offshore accounts. You have 3 different passports hidden in a safe deposit box. You have an extraction plan that you've rehearsed in your mind 1,000 times. But as you stand up, your legs feel like lead. You realize the brutal, inescapable truth of the logistics machine. You spent your entire adult life moving the cartel's product across borders. You crossed invisible lines on maps, navigating checkpoints, x-rays, and sniffer dogs. You thought you were mastering the system. You thought you were outsmarting the government and making yourself indispensable to the cartel. You grab your go bag from the hidden compartment behind your bookshelf. You walk toward the service elevator, checking the security feed on your phone. You survive the crossings. You survive the highways. You survived the cutthroat politics of the organization. But you look at the burner phone in your hand, waiting for the notification that the federal agents are at your door, or worse, waiting for the cartel's cleanup crew to ensure you never have the chance to testify. The money bought you nothing but a bigger cage. The border you spent your life crossing was never physical, it was psychological. You crossed the line the day you took that first envelope in the transmission shop, and you have been running ever since. You step into the elevator, the doors slide shut. You are no longer a transporter, you are just a man waiting to be caught.